I've got my Kiri shirt on today. That's Father Roger, MSc. And I got that a couple of years ago when I was in Kiribati. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Kiribati today. So you're with Mission Alive. This is Roger from the MSc Mission Office. A date that I missed earlier this month was the 10th of May. And that was the time when the first German missionaries went to Kiribati, which was then known as the Gilbert and Ellice Islands. And they were Germans, Father Eduard Bontham, Father Joseph Loray, and Brother Conrad Weber. Father Loray later became the first bishop of the Gilbert Islands. And of course, Kiribati is the Kiribati way of saying Gilberts. K and G, interchangeable. L and B, you don't have two hard sounds together, you have a soft sound in the middle, so Kiribati, Kiribati. So when you say Kiribati, you say Gilberts. So these were German missionaries in the Pacific at the time. At that time, Germany had a number of colonial possessions throughout the Pacific. Germany, only having formed the nation late, was a bit late on the colonial scene and grabbed sort of whatever was left over. So they had a number of possessions throughout the Pacific, including German New Guinea or New Pomerania, which was the north side of Papua New Guinea. So it was interesting that the Gilbert and Ellice Islands were actually British possessions or British protectorate. The Germans went there. There was probably a bit of a political thing because the Germans were rather dominant in that part of the Pacific, so it would be advantageous to have some Germans there rather than, say, the French. That was when they went there and continued on there in that mission, which was very, very, very widespread right through that area. There was some Catholics there who had been baptized, I think, in Samoa or Tonga or somewhere like that, and had returned home carrying their faith with them. So there was a beginning there before they went there, and so a good portion of the population now is Catholic. Just in terms of government and colonial possessions, after the First World War, when the Germans were defeated, the Japanese moved in and took possession of what were the German possessions, islands and bits and pieces. One part of China and right down through the Pacific. And they wanted to take German New Guinea or New Pomerania. And at the convention sorting out the peace arrangements, Versailles, the Japanese were saying, well, we want that too. And it was Billy Hughes, our Prime Minister at the time, who stood up and said, no, Australia gets that. We look after that. Because at that stage, Papua was already an Australian territory. The New Guinea side was German at that stage. So Australia, Billy Hughes said, no, we will look after that, and we were given that as a mandated territory under the League of Nations. And after the Second World War, that became a United Nations trusteeship territory administered by Australia. And from there, after the Second World War, Australia administered it as one administrative block and called it the Territory of Papua and New Guinea, TP and NG, until it came to independence. So it's interesting with the history. We could have had a very strong Japanese presence very close to the north of Australia. And in part of the Marianas, the truck, I think, the Japanese built a very big naval and air force base. and if they had have had German New Guinea, they would have built a similar one in Rabaul, probably on Manus, and certainly other places there would have been a strong military presence there just north of Australia, which would have made a big difference to our history and the history of the war. So this is how things go along, and in that, missionaries are part of that world. And those German missions in Kiribati were part of the world at that time. Thank you for being with Mission Alive.